Well, welcome to our bi-weekly Wednesday webinar. And today we're talking about stretching and strength training. These are tips to maximize your rides, reps, and recovery. Our guest this morning is Nick Dunn from Anytime Fitness down in the Portland area. I'll have his information later in the slide deck here. And he is a cyclist and he works at Anytime Fitness Gym. And he has some great advice and tips to keep us cyclists healthy before we go for a ride, during the ride, and after the ride. Things that some of us may not consider. I, for one, I focus on the ride, the pedaling, but I know that there's a lot more I could do to either make my ride stronger or make myself more comfortable after the ride so I don't get cramps or feel any kind of muscle fatigue or get stiffness just from overuse of the muscles on a bike and ignoring everything that has to do with keeping those muscles happy. My name is Eric Da Silva. I work for the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. I'm the manager of our Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Education Program. The Bicycle Coalition of Maine is Maine's statewide voice to make Maine a better place for biking and walking. And we do a lot of education events and other great activities to really help us thrive in this great state. We are a membership-based organization, so we would love to have your support. Just check us out at bikemaine.org. Nick Dunn works for Anytime Fitness in the Westgate Plaza down in the Portland area. I've already said a little bit about him. Nick, would you like to add a few more comments about yourself before we kick it off?
Yeah. So I grew up in the Portland area. Like Eric said, I do work at the Anytime Fitness in Portland at the Westgate Shopping Plaza. I do have a certification in personal training as well as strength and conditioning. So that's kind of working with a wide range of people in the community, inside the gym as well as outside, whether that's just the average gym goer, people that like to do exercise outside, or any type of athletes that are looking to kind of improve on their performance. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Oops, went too far. Here's our overview for today, just so you all know what we're going to be talking about. How gym work complements bicycling, because a lot of us may not think about how the gym even fits into our hobby, recreation, or commuting by bicycle. Hydration is a big part of this. Stretching and warming up. So this routine that we really should do before we get on a ride, before we do any weight training. Nick's going to talk about specific weight training and the importance of rest. So that's sort of working our muscle groups and then letting them chill out for a little bit in order to build our bodies stronger. What do we do after a workout? How do we cool down properly? And then dealing with injuries, because injuries are almost inevitable. We can do a lot to prevent them from happening, but when they do occur, what happens next? And then we'll finish up with some question and answer period. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Please make yourselves heard during this conversation. If you would like to mention something, use the chat box. You can raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and you can unmute yourself and just speak. But please bring your voice into this conversation as much as you can so that we can really help you answer your own questions and enhance whatever you want to focus on. We have some slides here just to kind of emphasize what the topics that Nick is going to be speaking about, to emphasize what they are, to show you some imagery, but there's going to be a lot of time where we're just not using slides at all, just so you have a little bit of expectations. Nick, do you want to start with the hydration slide, or do you want to start with just talking without the slide?
We can just kind of start talking about how just kind of the gym or exercise, even outside the gym in general,
Okay.
kind of complements biking and kind of.
Let me know when you're ready
overall
for the hydration slide, and we'll throw it up there.
Okay. All right.
So the floor is yours, Nick.
Awesome. So just fitness in general, one main thing we kind of want to do is just encourage people to participate in some kind of healthy activity, if not daily, kind of on a weekly basis. just to kind of help promote healthy living. I mean, exercise in general helps reduce the risk of kind of developing some certain diseases, whether that's obesity or type 2 diabetes. Helps kind of bring down blood pressure. So if you are trying to prevent it, or if you already have some type of high blood pressure, then regular exercise will help assist in that. Pertaining to just cycling in general, I know if you're kind of riding in a longer period of time, you're usually stuck in kind of one fixed position. So by coming in and doing just regular exercise, whether that's strength training or just a stretching routine, it targets more than just the leg muscles and lower back that you would typically put the most stress on as you're riding. We like to kind of focus on overall body health, just to improve functionality, making things easier for a longer period of time. So you're not, you may enjoy bike riding now and you want to enjoy bike riding for the next, say, 15, 20 years. So by involving yourself in some type of exercise, strength training does kind of help that. Working on building muscle and strength and endurance will help promote that longevity and being able to do the things that you like doing on a day-to-day basis, whether that's just regular exercise or bike riding. When you come into the gym, we don't like to just focus on just strength training itself. A lot of people, when they come in, they think, if they use weights, they may kind of bulk up, which isn't always the case. We want to be able to help reduce any type of injuries that may occur on just day to day, and kind of teach people different exercises and different movements, different types of exercises, whether that's like circuit training, different cardio routines, things like that, just to improve just day-to-day health. Like I said, reducing any type of diseases that can cause that can come up in just day-to-day life. So we're just looking to improve people's overall health and make kind of day-to-day life a little bit easier for people. So if we want to go into the hydration, we can jump into that. Awesome. Just update this. All right, so hydration. Usually when we do an initial consult with people in the gym, one of the main focuses we do talk to people about is hydration. We always focus on making sure that they're getting enough fluids on a day-to-day basis. Daily intake can range anywhere from around, as far as the good levels, about 2.5 to 3.5 liters on the high end, which would be about a gallon a day of water. That can kind of vary based on body type, weight, activity level, things like that. One big thing to kind of incorporate into day-to-day, whether it's before a workout or before going out on a longer ride, is to focus on hydration that will help you stay hydrated as you go through that exercise. Obviously, the water is important and it will keep the body hydrated. Another thing is things like slow release carbohydrates, things like fruits and vegetables that will produce energy at a slower rate so that you can go through a longer workout or ride without any type of dehydration or things like cramping. So the more that you hydrate, the easier that exercise will be.
What would be sorry, Nick, what would be a high release carbohydrate? What would be the wrong thing to eat before?
Things like higher carbs, things that will Another thing would be like higher carbs or things that will dehydrate the blood and muscles. Obviously, one major example is like alcohol. Before a workout, or even a few hours before, something that's going to dehydrate you faster. So I'm just trying to think of some examples that would.
No pre-ride beers.
Right.
And like bread, crackers, that kind of thing. Would that be?
Yeah, things that would be in a higher carb rate. You want to stick to more of a fluid level with prior to an exercise, like water or sports drinks, something that provides you energy as you're in a specific exercise or a bike ride. Things for during a workout. Obviously, as you kind of are riding or doing an intense workout, you do sweat a lot. So by drinking water, it is typically recommended about every 15 to 20 minutes. Obviously, the more intense that your exercise is, the more water intake that will benefit you. I know during longer ridings or even people that run longer distances, they like to do the sports inks or even the energy gels, just to give them a kind of a quick shot energy to help replace any electrolytes or anything that are lost during exercise. Post-workout, sports drinks such as Gatorade, Powerade can all help with carbohydrates for the energy, replace any electrolytes lost during sweat, and it helps with kind of recovery and any cramping that may occur during exercise. Because as your body dehydrates, if you're not getting enough fluids, that's when you'll start to experience those cramping episodes, which if people have had those, they're never fun to deal with, and do take a little bit to recover from.
I find that during really hot days when I sweat a lot, I actually I have a bag of mix, and I always add, like, it says a scoop and a half for like a large size water bottle. I often put like 2 full or 2.5 scoops in. If I don't, I'll get migraines later in the day. When I finish the ride, I'll take salt tabs in addition to drinking something more. So each of us is different. I have friends that just drink water and they seem to be fine, but I tend to lose a lot of salt, I suppose, and salt-like things through sweat and heavy activity.
Yeah, the water tablets are awesome. They do have kind of hydration tablets available that you can mix in the water. And then like sports drinks do have that electrolytes in their ingredients, so that helps kind of replenish and makes going through a workout a lot easier. Because once you start to feel dehydrated, the body can kind of feel weak. You may have some type of dizziness, and the muscle strength goes way down. So the risk of injury will increase if you kind of go through a workout and continued without kind of replenishing those fluids.
Do you want to go to the next slide, Nick? Stretching and warm-up examples?
Yeah, yep, that would be perfect. All right, so these are just a few examples, and I'll go through each of them just to kind of explain each of the movements. But stretching is one of the kind of the most important things that you can do prior to an exercise, whether it is working out in a gym, going for a run, or even cycling, just because it loosens up the muscles, gets the kind of blood flowing through the body, and targeting specific muscle groups to reduce any type of injuries, muscle pulls, strains, things that will kind of reduce your capability to go at your kind of full capacity through the exercise. The first one here we have, it's just a hip flexor, and it's in the lunge formation. So what this does is kind of opens up the hips and the pelvic, because as you're in, just for example, the cycling, you're kind of in a fixed position for a long period of time. So what this does is help kind of loosen up those muscles that may lead to pain or imbalances, and just makes the range of motion in your hips and legs a little bit easier to reduce any type of injury that may occur. The next one here in the middle is it's called a Piriformis Stretch. What this does is it targets the muscles around the glute muscles as well as the lower back. And if you experience any type of low back or sciatica pain, this stretch, even on a daily basis, can be highly beneficial. I do have some clients that kind of go through a workout or just come in, and the low back pain is usually the first thing that they report as far as a prior injury or just trying to do exercises on their own. So what this does is it stretches out those muscles, kind of gets them into new positions to reduce any pain or tightness, and is kind of a good stretch to do prior to exercise or cycling, because you are in that fixed position where the muscles can kind of tighten up on you and cause that soreness. Next one on the far right, it's typically just called the child's pose. It is a big, usually seen in kind of a yoga exercise, but it does stretch the muscles in the lower back. And to kind of get a deeper stretch with it, if you are just kind of sitting straight up sitting on your feet, and taking in a deep breath, and then as you go into that stretched out position, you would want to exhale, and that'll kind of loosen up the muscles to get more of a stretch. And then it does stretch the upper back and shoulders the further that you reach out in front of you. The next one down in the bottom left corner is just a typical neck stretching. As you're riding, you are in that for a long period of time, the bent over position, where you are putting a lot of stress in your shoulders and your neck to keep your head up, just to kind of see where you're going. So by stretching out those muscles, it will kind of build the strength in there to make that fixed position a lot easier and reduce any type of strain. These are good if you do have also a lot of stress, because that's usually where you'll feel that kind of pain and irritation the most, is in that neck and trap area. So by stretching, you can do both sides. So you just lean your head to one side and just slightly add some tension. You want to hold about 15 to 20 seconds for each side, and then you can do it with the head leaning forward and back as well, just to kind of get an overall stretch of that area. And same thing with even weight training, because you do put a lot of stress on that, on the neck muscles as you're lifting weights, because when you're using weight that you don't usually lift on a day-to-day basis, it adds stress into muscles that you typically don't use. The last one is just a hamstring stretch. Many ways you can do this. You don't have to use a band or resistance bands or anything like that. You can use towel or just your hands, and lifting legs straight up into the air and kind of pulling back towards you. This will stretch those hamstring muscles, as well as working down into the glute muscles, to kind of stretch that out to prepare for any type of exercise that may be coming up, whether that's a lot of use with the legs for bike riding, or if you're doing any type of lower back or leg workout in the gym. Just it will stretch that out to prevent any type of muscle pulls or strains.
Nick, I've heard two ways of doing this. One is like before you even start the activity, stretch and warm up. I've also heard people recommend that you should start the activity really gently to get blood flowing and get your body temperature like distributed throughout your body a little bit better before doing any stretching. What are your thoughts on one versus the other?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, I would incorporate, I mean, you can mix the stretching in with like a resistance bands exercises. I do have some clients that will go through either a stretching routine or kind of a light warm up on a cardio machine. And then we'll go through each of the exercises with either just body weight or with resistance bands, because that'll preload the muscles with kind of the oxygen and blood level. And it also works as stretching out the muscles because you're using them in that same form that you'll be using when you put the stress of the weights on them. So you can definitely incorporate both of them together, or just doing a resistance bands workout because you're still stretching out those muscles and kind of preloading them for the upcoming exercise.
And then we have a question here from one of our attendees. For cyclists who wouldn't be on an upright bike but on a recumbent bike, or a hand cycle for someone who might have a lower leg impediment.
Yep.
Are there any different stretches or exercises that you would suggest? We haven't got to the exercises yet, but I guess as far as stretching and warm-up examples, what are there other muscle groups that people in sit-down bikes should consider?
Yeah, so there are lower back stretches or just arm stretches in general. And I can sit back a little bit and do some examples for you guys. So just kind of stretching arms. You can just put one arm up across and you take that opposite hand and pull towards you. And that stretches out the arm and into the shoulder. So if you have to use the hand bike, you do have that stretch in the upper body. You can do core rotations, whether that's just body weight. You can stick your hands out into the side and just kind of rotate your core back and forth. That'll loosen up the muscles in the hips, core, lower back. And then you can also, with the resistance bands, if you do have them available, you can do things like internal and external rotations for the rotator cuff, just by keeping your elbow against your side, just above your hip, and then rotating your arm internally or externally to help build strength in that rotator cuff as well. For additional stretches, if you're either in a chair or seated on the ground, you can rotate your upper body to one direction on the side and put pressure, say if you're sitting in a chair, put pressure on the backside of the chair, pulling your upper body around. It will stretch out that lower back and spine as well to kind of loosen up those muscles.
And when we're doing these stretches, what type of excuse me duration would you suggest? A breath count or seconds to hold, and how much should we be pushing the muscles? Should it be slightly painful or not painful at all, or should we increase the discomfort like to really get that stretch? I think a lot of us associate like a little bit of pain with a good stretch. Is that something that we should do? So I guess length and how much stretching should we be pushing on our bodies?
Yeah, so each stretch you should hold each position for anywhere from based on comfort level like 15 to 20 seconds for each position, just so that muscle has enough time to fully stretch out and kind of get that blood flowing through those locations. You want to hold a stretch where it it's not painful, but there is some pressure or slight discomfort because that's the muscle stretching out. If it's too painful, where you can feel that it may kind of pull that muscle and cause any type of injury, then at that point you might just cut back a little bit on that pressure. So you just want a little bit of discomfort because that's the muscle stretching out. Because as you stretch out, you are targeting muscles that you don't use kind of on a day-to-day basis. So there will be some discomfort because they're tight, but that's kind of the main purpose of these stretches, is to loosen those up to get ready for the upcoming exercise.
So let's jump right to that then.
All right. So in this next slide, I do have some examples of different exercises, and I'll go over those as well, just like we went over the stretches. Just want to touch on a few things. A lot of people, when they come in, one of the main things that we focus on is making sure that they do have proper form in certain exercises prior to just going in and lifting heavier weights. Because a lot of injuries that we see, it's not because of the weight they're lifting, it's because of the form that they're doing them with. So I'll just use one of these pictures for example. The squat version listed here is the goblet squat in the middle. This is one that we start out with. We don't like to throw the full length barbell on somebody's back that's never come into the gym or done any weights. This way they have a lightweight or just body weight to start out, and they would just hold that at chest level and perform a squat from there. Just for example, as far as the form of squat, we usually have people's stance about shoulder width apart, maybe slightly wider, and as they go down into the squat, they want to keep those shoulders up and back straight, as kind of pictured in that image. And for kind of form progression, we usually have somebody start as they squat down onto a box or a chair, just as they would be seated down in a chair, kind of on a normal basis, just to work on the depth that the squat requires. We usually start at a higher level and kind of work our way down so that the muscles can kind of adapt, instead of just dropping right down to that lower portion, which is usually parallel with the ground. We don't want to have somebody go down to that position and then pull something or strain something trying to get back up into that standing position. So form is one of the main things that we do focus on. Different type of exercises that we do recommend is either splitting things up as far as the muscle groups that you target. Usually would do like an upper body focus day and then a lower body focus. And then we mix in different types of exercises, whether that's circuit training, where we would do anywhere from 4 to 6 exercises in a row with a rest at the end. And kind of the main reason for that is to get the heart rate up, burns a little bit more calories, and you can add in kind of full body exercises as you go through each of those exercises. We do have, so the images that we do have up on the screen here, the first one we do have is a variation of a deadlift. And for people that may not know what that is with a full length bar, is where you're down in a squat position and you're pulling the weight straight up into a standing position. And the same thing with the squat. We don't want somebody to just grab a heavier weight and pull that up because they may not have the leg strength or the lower back strength to assist that without any injury. So by using dumbbells or a kettlebell, this reduces the weight significantly. and we can work on more of a form, because we want any type of deadlift, or when we're picking things up off the ground, we want to make sure that our shoulders do stay up with a kind of natural curve in our lower back, because when you start rounding the back off doing exercise, it puts that lower back in kind of a stressful position, and can cause the low back pain, or any strains from the lower back down into the legs. So that the first one would cover or target more of the glute and quad and hamstrings. So that would be more on a lower body focus, and the same thing with the squat variation. The next one we do have on the far right is just an example of a back exercise. This one's called just a bent over dumbbell row. So all you're doing is rowing with one arm at a time, and it will target the upper back, biceps, and the lat muscle on the side of the back. This would be a good exercise for cyclists, as they're kind of in a fixed position, and don't usually target the back or arms specifically during a longer ride. So by working out these muscles, it does build up that endurance, and reduce any type of mid-ride soreness, or strains that may cause you to either stop the ride short, or if you have to continue through it, reduce any pain that may occur as you're going through. Next one here down on the bottom left. This is a core focus exercise. It's called a wood chop. You can do it with a just a free weight plate. In the gym, we do use a lot of the cable machines for this, and we try to focus a lot, at least 1 to 2 days a week, specifically towards the core muscles, as these all interact with the legs, the lower back, and the stronger your core, the more likely you are to have that lower back pain. So for this exercise, what you would do is start at a lower position, keeping your feet pointing straight and just turning your core down towards one side of your knee, and then rotating up towards the opposite ankle. What this does is builds the abdominal muscles as well as the core and lower back, and it'll help kind of reduce any strain or injury while you're doing any type of other exercises like leg or back specific exercises. You can do different variations of the core exercise here. You can start at the higher position and rotate down to the opposite knee, or just rotate side to side, keeping your feet in a straight fixed position, but rotating your core from side to side. A lot of injuries that we are able to kind of reduce for people is when we target the core. It does limit their low back pain that they may have had coming into the gym. So by starting with that with somebody new or somebody that's experienced in the gym, it just kind of builds that foundation to prepare them for the stress from the other exercises that we may go over. And the last one here we have on the slide is just different plank variations. This will target the abdominal muscles as well as the core, and then does work the shoulder and quad muscles from staying in that one fixed position. Tons of different variations for the plank. You can do the one that's imaged on the screen, or you can do a side plank where your body is facing towards one side of, say if you're in a room, you would be facing the wall with one arm on the ground. So it'll target, depending on the variation that you're doing, it will target different portions of the abdominals and core muscles. Any current questions about any of those movements, or any movements that you may have tried in the gym as well?
How is there a way that we could do the high-low wood chop without having that cable machine?
Yeah,
Or
so you
target
don't,
similar muscles?
have a cable machine if you have a resistance band, or if you have a just a dumbbell or anything like that. Just by holding that weight, starting in the higher position, rotating down, you can do that movement, and just kind of contract your abdominal and core muscles as you rotate through. And by flexing those muscles, it does add a little bit of resistance as you rotate the core. And was there any current questions? Sorry, I didn't see that.
Nope, that was it. We have a
Okay.
question for the end, but do you want to move
Okay.
on to the next slide? Stretching and foam rolling.
Perfect. So the next thing I just want to go over is just some post-workout stretching and different foam rolling options. So as you kind of go through a workout or even cycling, since you are using different muscles and in fixed position, those muscles will tighten up and cause stiffness and soreness, either right after the exercise, or you may even feel them a day or two later. A lot of people that come in and do weightlifting for the first time, they're using new muscles that they don't normally use on a day-to-day basis. So they do have some of that stiffness and soreness a few days later. So by stretching before and definitely after, say if you were doing cycling or lower body exercise, after the your ride, if you do just like it doesn't even have to be a long period of time, it could be 10, 15 minutes of just stretching, whether that's doing quad stretch exercises, hamstrings, and stretching upper body as well. It just reduces that soreness in the muscles that had been targeted and kind of shortened as you went through those exercises. With foam rolling, we do have, when we have clients using a little bit of extra weight or circuit training where they're using a lot of different muscles, as you go through exercises, you get lactic acid buildup in those muscles. So we do recommend some type of foam rolling to kind of stretch out those muscles, as well as move that lactic acid around instead of that one fixed position, as the lactic acid will cause the soreness. So by foam rolling, it just helps reduce that soreness from that day or the day after. You may still have some, but it'll help those muscles recover, because as you do any type of exercise, whether it's weight training or cycling, the muscles do get micro tears, and that's what helps build the muscle and strength in those muscles. So just by stretching those muscles out and foam rolling, or stretching in general, it just helps with the recovery portion of that.
With foam rolling, Nick,
Yep.
what's your advice, similar to stretching, as far as duration with the roller in one location?
So with the roller, I usually have clients do about 10 to 15 seconds in each of the locations. When we go through a sequence, we usually start down by the calves and do each calf, or you can do both of the calves together at the same time, which is imaged in that picture as well. And then rolling it up into the hamstrings and hitting each muscle group for about 10 to 15 seconds. And then moving up to the next one, whether that's lower back, upper back. At first, if someone's new to foam rolling, it will be kind of slightly discomfort or maybe slightly painful, just because that muscle has so much lactic acid in it, and the tightness of them, you are rolling that muscle out. and stretching it out. So the pressure of the foam roller will cause a little bit of discomfort, but it's not going to cause any type of injury. It's just stretching out those muscles that that you just put through strenuous, whether it's lifting or cycling.
We have another question.
Yeah.
What I am hearing is that there are some exercises that focus on warming up the larger muscle groups, i.e. or e.g. the quads. And then there are exercises that focus on overall stretching, particularly the antagonistic, that like hamstrings, which shorten. Is that what you're suggesting too, Nick?
Sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
That we were really focusing on two different groups, one at a time. Though we have the muscles like the quads versus the muscles like the hamstrings, one that pulls the other back and forth, but we only focus on one at a time.
Yeah, so there are, so for lower body, example, lower body, if you're going to do a workout that focuses directly on lower body, there are a lot of exercises that will target more than one muscle group. For example, like on the previous image, the deadlift. As you do go through that exercise, it does target both the quad and hamstrings, but as you go through a workout, you kind of want to separate them so that they don't get overused. So at times for a lower body routine, we'll do things separately, like a leg extension, where you're sitting down in the machine and kicking your legs out to an extended position. That will have a quad focus. And as you kind of go through that, it does let the other muscles kind of recover a little bit. So there are certain exercises that will incorporate the entire leg, hamstring, quad, even the glutes all at once. But we do want to target them separately as well.
And I guess I think in this question too, maybe what the person was trying to ask is that we have these big bulk muscles that we really identify with cycling, for instance, but there's also a lot of subtle muscle groups in our bodies that we don't feel, see until like suddenly there's an issue. And so that there's also like an overall warm up that we need to do for our body, including stretching, not just not get fixated on these key muscle groups. Is that true?
Right. So there are overall body exercises that you can do. I mean, you can do a warm up either on like a cardio machine. There are different like plyometric exercises that you can do to warm up, whether that's like step ups on a box. If you've there are things like jump rope. You can even do skip stretches, hip flexors, where you're kind of just walking as you walk down like a 10 to 20 yard space. If you just lift one leg up at a time and kind of pull it towards your chest, or lift up and rotate externally towards the side, it will target smaller muscles that aren't typically used as you go through the exercise, but you're still stretching and warming them up, so that while you're doing the kind of bulk muscle exercises, those muscles don't get strained because you're going through like a full body stretch at the beginning.
Thanks, Nick.
And just some additional stretching and foam rolling by stretching either before or after. It has helps increased flexibility. I know personally, when I went through school, I was never a big stretch person, and body was always tight and limited flexibility. But I did get into kind of a consistent stretching routine, as well as different things like step ups or jump roping, or just kind of going for walks daily. It helps kind of stretch out muscles that you don't use on a day-to-day basis, and kind of adds a little bit of flexibility, which makes going through exercises and cycling a little bit easier because you have that mobility in those muscles, so they don't tighten up as easily, and preventing any type of strain or pulls. So by just stretching before and after, it's just the main focus to kind of prevent injuries, making the exercise a little bit easier for yourself, and just kind of increasing flexibility and longevity of those muscles. Because if you keep doing exercises without any type of stretching, eventually those muscles will get tight, and that's when you usually see a muscle strain or pull that limits those people's exercises that they would have done if they didn't have any injuries.
What you said resonates really well with me too, Nick. This idea of being sort of inflexible during school. You said you were really just kind of stiff.
Yeah.
I'm still like that, and I find that like it limits rotation. I can't like rotate my hips very well, like rock them. So all the muscles in my lower back and in my glutes are like tight. And I end up getting pain down there just because of the inflexibility. So I really need to work on that. I think it's probably associated with cycling so much. But flexibility, I'm realizing as I get older, is probably more important than a lot of other parts that I would associate with being a fit cyclist.
Yeah, because as you get older, the muscles will tighten up a lot quicker. So just by stretching those out, it just helps get the blood flowing through them, and it makes those muscles a little bit more functional, and kind of reduces that injury. Because once you have kind of that strain or pull in the muscle, it just takes a little bit longer to recover than if you hadn't done any type of stretching routine. Because if you do any type of like weight training or stretching routines kind of on a daily or weekly basis, if you do get an injury, it makes it a lot easier to recover than if you hadn't done any prior to that.
We have another question that I'll wait till after this. So let's take. Just want to let everyone know that we do have the Great Maine Bike Swap returning. We're going to run a small version of it in Portland. It'll be outdoors, weather, I think it's outdoors. Some details are still being figured out, but late June, I think it's even June 26th is the date that we've got confirmed. So if you're looking for a new bike, or you want to sell your old bike, or you need something for one of your kids, check out the Bike Swap that the Bicycle Coalition of Maine is going to be hosting later this summer. And then a quick update for some upcoming topics in our Wednesday webinar series. 2 weeks from today, also in the morning, we're going to be doing a webinar on crash reports. And really what we want to talk about during this webinar is how incorrect some of the information is that we see in these articles is presented to us. It's often victim blaming, etc. Why does this matter? And it matters because in order for us to change the safety for cyclists and walkers, we're going to need to change the way that we perceive crashes and why and how they happen. And then in June, now we return to the evening, 7 p.m. hour. June 2nd, we're talking about upper extremity injuries, preventing and healing. So this would be like carpal tunnel would be a great example of upper extremity injuries. So why does carpal tunnel happen to some cyclists? What can we do to prevent it from happening? But there's also injuries associated with the arms and shoulders. So we have an occupational therapist joining us for that evening. And then later in June, we're talking about e-bikes, buying them, using them, maintaining them. Anything you ever want to know about electric assist bicycles will be on that webinar also in the evening. Just a reminder to find out what webinars are coming up or any other events on our calendar. And these aren't just Bicycle Coalition of Maine events, but we host events for organizations throughout the state. You go to our website, bikemaine.org, click on events at the top menu. and then calendar, and you'll see a full list of all the upcoming events, including webinars, bicycle safety rodeos, event rides, and club rides, and there's even more there. So check it out if you haven't been there already. So we had another question, Nick, and I know this might be stretching your knowledge as a nutritionalist, but this question has to do with people that might have hyperactive metabolism. So they're really moving through metabolizing their stores of energy very quickly. And he says he registered for the B12 this year. So I assume the B12 is a supplement. I don't know. It sounds like some sort of event, but register for the B12. Maybe there's an injection where you can get a B12 injection. I'm not familiar with that. And they get hungry very quickly, especially on longer rides. Do you have any advice for kind of charging up that internal battery so that you don't bonk?
I mean, one of the main things I would say is just making sure that you're kind of getting in the proper kind of carbohydrates. I mean, whether that's increase in fruits and vegetables just to kind of help with that energy level. Hydration will help with that. I'm not, the only thing I just wasn't sure whether with the registration for the B12. I know you can have a kind of a deficiency in the vitamin B12, and they do have different supplements to assist with that. But just making sure nutritional wise that you're just eating healthy, not eating to the point where you're kind of overeating, but just kind of a healthy amount.
I heard that a lot of the supplements that you put into a drink aren't just electrolytes, but they have sugars in them too.
Right.
So simple carbohydrates. So when you drink Gatorade, you shouldn't drink Gatorade just whenever you feel like drinking, because it's got a lot of sugar in it. But drink Gatorade and other hydration drinks during a ride will supplement that loss of energy as you burn it away. So it's really easy to digest too. It's not like you're eating like a bologna sandwich mid-ride or something like that. Another question, how much rest is needed? What's a good balance of weight training, riding, and rest?
So there's a couple things I can touch on with this. Just rest in general during exercise. For weight training specifically, we do have kind of different rest periods, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute and a half in between each set of an exercise. And what that does is lets the muscle kind of recover instead of doing it quickly back to back. So say if you were doing like the squat exercise, if you were to do 10 to 15 squats and then only rest for say 10 seconds and then do another 10 to 15 squats, your muscles don't have that full capacity that they would have had in that first set. So by giving it time to kind of recover, it gets the kind of the strength back in those muscles to kind of prevent any failure during an exercise. I would recommend, if you're doing any type of weight training program or cycling, if you do 2 to 3 days back to back, give at least a day or two in between before you get back into a 2 or 3 day run of exercises again. So you want at least a day of rest in between 2 to 3 days of exercises, just to allow those muscles to recover. Because like I said before, if you go through exercises, it does cause kind of some micro tears in the muscle. So giving those muscles time to recover, it just helps prevent any type of injury and gives the body the full strength that it needs to go through the next exercise.
And just to clarify too, Mike, when you say micro tear, it sounds pretty scary, but what we're talking about is actually something that we expect to happen and we're almost creating on purpose in order to build that muscle stronger over time.
Right. It's nothing that you would ever notice. It's not an injury that would prevent you from doing anything. That's just how the muscle grows. It does cause micro tears when you're doing an exercise, so that when it rebuilds, that muscle will build back stronger, which is kind of the goal as you go through a weight training exercise, or even if you're riding and you're kind of putting a lot of stress on your legs. That's how the leg muscles will get stronger to help you go through those kind of long duration rides. It just helps build that strength back in the muscles.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Had some really good ones. If you have any final questions, please throw them out there. Feel free to unmute yourself or write a question in the chat. When I used to race, on my rest days, sometimes it was plain old, like, don't even get on the bike, but it was also totally okay just to get on the bike and go for a super easy spin, and that was considered a rest day. And it was almost beneficial because it kept those muscle groups just moving gently so that things didn't start to seize up during that one gentle day during a string of really hard ones.
Yeah, so on a rest day, you don't have to just take it as like a literal rest day and not do anything. You still kind of want to be a little bit active, whether that's going for just a lighter ride or even just a walk for 15, 20 minutes to a half an hour. You're still getting the kind of the use of those muscles, but you're still giving them time without being under stress of kind of a harder ride or weight training, so that they can recover fully.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for joining us this morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining this talk as well. My information and Nick's is all on the screen right now. If you have questions, Nick has said, feel free to email him or contact him at the gym. I think it could be really beneficial to just get, even if you don't feel like you need to be a gym member for a whole year, you could, I think, Nick, right? You could go in for a month or two and you could really help with the form and kind of learning the correct routine of things. And then you could return to doing things on your own.
Yep. Yeah, we do have trial memberships that you can come in and just try the gym, or even if you don't want to become a member, if you just want to come in, we can kind of just go through like a consultation type thing and go over a few different exercises and show you form, and then different ways to reach kind of specific goals that you're trying to get.
Well, thanks for taking your time this morning very much, Nick. And stay in touch, everyone, with what we're up to here at the Bicycle Coalition of Maine. And I'll get that email with the link for the YouTube out in the coming day or two. So we don't normally do these in the morning. Usually it's bedtime now. So have a great rest of the day. Hopefully this is a good start to the day for all of you, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.